I have a big appetite. Again, I'm Greek and Italian, so I eat a lot. And even today I eat a lot, but I know what to eat so that I can stay in shape.
Mhm.
But I went from eating, two breakfasts at Denny's. We used to go to Denny's every morning, every weekend for breakfast. I'd eat my breakfast and my dad's and whatever my mom didn't eat and whatever my little sister didn't eat. So I was a big eater. So I went from that to nothing. There's always guilt, no
Mhm.
matter what, because we're trying to be so perfect. On top of that, it's exactly what you said, feeling like you need to run the household, you need to prioritize everybody but yourself. And that's such a common thing. And so, really, a lot of it is about women realizing, as moms, or even not as moms, you need to prioritize yourself no matter what. And that doesn't make you less of a mom. That actually will make you a better mom. So he was pretty hard on me to like, just don't do this anymore. You need to eat and which didn't make me want to eat more. But I will say my mom approached it from a more logical perspective. So rather than coming to me and saying, you're wrong for doing this isn't the way you should eat, she kind of walked me through how food is social and everything in life about food is social. And regardless of how I want my body to look, I have to have a good relationship with food in general.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using Newcalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Candice Imwalle, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I know we're going to be talking today about your new book that just came out, your children's book on nutrition. And I'm super, super excited for our time together. So thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. And it's actually two books that we
Yeah,
can talk about. So
yeah,
I'm thrilled to be here with you.
that's so cool. I love the fact that it's one for children and one for moms. I just love that because you're sort of covering all the bases. So let me ask you this. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town north of Boston, Massachusetts called Andover.
There you
It's
go. I've
about
heard of
40
Andover.
minutes north of Boston, a very, very New England town. So that's where I grew up.
So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
My favorite thing about growing up there was the seasons. We had wonderful variation in seasons. Winters were treacherous. We had blizzards and snow, and I just remember being in snowsuits as a kid, even during Halloween, sometimes trick-or-treating, you had to have a snowsuit under your costume. And then we'd swing to, once we had the winter, then we'd start to have spring, and it was beautiful, and the crocus were coming up from the ground. And then from there, we'd have summer, and then we'd have the beautiful fall. So there was so much variability in the seasons. I also loved the New England attitude. There's a lot of realness around the people in New England. We get kind of a bad reputation, like we're hard or really coarse with people, but they're just very honest,
Mhm.
and you know where you stand with people in New England. So I
Well, there's
really
not
love.
much of a question, right?
There's no question. Yeah, they know. You know exactly where you stand with everybody, whether you want to know or not. You will know.
So here's a question for you. You've written a book about nutrition and eating healthy for kids, right?
Yeah,
You
two
have a
books for kids, two of
right. So
them.
two books for kids,
Mhm.
and then you have a book coming out for moms,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
When did you first become interested in how food impacts your health?
Oh, that's a great question. So growing up, again, I was in New England, raised in a very strict household, Greek and Italian parents. One was Greek, one was Italian.
Now that's a
So I was
combination.
raised, yeah, it's a combination. So I was raised to be perfect in everything, be perfect in school, do really well in sports, and very high expectations. And also I was the oldest, so there was that dynamic as well. And there's a lot of pros and cons to that. And what I found was the pro was it made me very goal oriented. The con was it made me very hard on myself. And I still struggle with that today, is just being very hard on myself and trying to be perfect, which nobody's perfect, but I do feel like a lot of us struggle with that. And that translated into an eating disorder when I was in junior high, because, as women start to go through, children, little girls start to go through puberty, you start to get curves, and I started feeling like, oh gosh, I don't have my skinny athletic body anymore. I'm starting to get curves. I'm starting to get thighs. I need to do something about this. So I started, it eventually turned into an eating disorder, but I started limiting my food intake. I started getting obsessed with calorie counting. I was mostly eating watery vegetables. And of course, I started to lose a lot of weight, and I started to get really, really thin. And I actually liked it, because I felt like, okay, I'm staying in control. I'm staying this thin athlete that I need to be for sports. Um, and of course, my parents started to notice it, and it eventually turned into bulimia because I really liked to eat, and I was, this child that wanted to have this perfect skinny body, realizing that I can't eat, broccoli and zucchini forever, but how do I eat what I want to eat and stay skinny? So it turned into anorexia plus bulimia. And so, again, I had very strict parents, and of course, my father and my mother handled it completely different. And I think the way my father handled it is probably how most dads would handle it when they see their little girl doing something that's destructive to their body. So he was pretty hard on me to, like, just don't do this anymore. You need to eat, and which didn't make me want to eat more. But I will say my mom approached it from a more logical perspective. So rather than coming to me and saying, you're wrong for doing this isn't the way you should eat, she kind of walked me through how food is social, and everything in life about food is social. And regardless of how I want my body to look, I have to have a good relationship with food in general. And so, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm 100% cured from that, that wound I have of always trying to be perfect in everything, which I don't think that's a good thing for anybody. But I do think she got my mind in the right place of, okay, well, I can't do this bulimia thing. I can't just eat watery vegetables for the rest of my life. If I'm going to have children someday, I'm going to have to be healthy, and I will gain weight when I'm pregnant. So she got me to embrace making healthy choices. So basically learning better, what's a diet that I can have that's more sustainable, where I'm staying, healthy, but I'm not necessarily depriving myself to an unhealthy level. And so she really got me focused more on better understanding what foods we should eat, what foods we shouldn't eat, and having a more balanced approach to it. So I would say that's kind of when it started. And again, it wasn't a good start because it was a little bit obsessive, but I think she got me to be a little bit more logical about it. So I would say that's kind of where it started.
Would you say that you were your own biggest critic?
Yeah, I would say that I still am. And I would
Mm.
say that a lot of people still are. I mean, you and I were talking about the grade you got in your test. You're so accomplished, yet you're focused on this grade you got that wasn't perfect. Like, I think
Mhm.
as human beings, we tend to dwell on what's not perfect. And I don't think that's healthy. And again, that's something I still struggle with today, that I think a lot of people struggle with.
So it's a balance, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you can have high standards, that's not a bad thing. It's just there's a balance. So there's destructive, right? There's high standards, and then there's what, right? That's something I think. Well, let me ask you, what did you learn from that experience?
I definitely learned that what you said, I think it's really good to have high standards, but the high standards have to be realistic. And they also have to be sustainable.
Mhm.
So, again, when we look at our accomplishments in life, and, whatever age you're at, I mean, even as a teenager, you've got sports accomplishments, great accomplishments. National Honor Society, I want to be in National Honor Society. And I feel like in general, a lot of people don't take the time to acknowledge their accomplishments.
Right.
They just kind of breeze through them and keep chasing the next thing. And I do think that was one takeaway that my mom gave me was, if you're gonna if you're gonna try to be, perfect about food, do something that's sustainable and healthy at the same time, because there's different levels of having high standards. There's an unhealthy high standard, and then there's a realistic high standard that drives you in the right direction.
So what she was trying to teach you, it sounds like, is, and when you talk about sustainability, it sounds like she was talking about, hey, if you're looking to lose 10 pounds, right? Don't try to lose it in the next week, right? Try to
Yes.
adjust what you can mildly because it's too much of a shock to your system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I feel like is a lesson that you learned, in that there's a better way to get there that's not so immediate. Like,
Yeah.
if it's okay, can we talk about your dad's approach to this?
Yeah, of
There's a
course.
lot of daughters, including my daughter, tend to favor their dads. They tend to be like their dads, right? So that same intensity level, that same sort of control need, so to speak, right, is what I'm hearing from how your dad approached this. And the fact that you're probably just like your dad probably made it harder for you to hear it. You with me?
Yes, I
And he
am.
probably didn't know, or probably didn't feel like he had the skills to say it any other way. It's like, just stop doing that, right?
Right.
That's sort of the old school way of doing things. Can you talk for a second about how you reacted to his input, to what he told you?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, yes, he was, like a lot of dads, controlling of their daughters, and the control doesn't come from a bad place. It comes
No,
from
no,
a
no.
good place.
No, I
It's
wasn't
love.
suggesting that.
Yeah,
I'm just, it's just sort of the way things were, right? And it's sort of how they knew to parent. You with me?
I am
And
with you.
and what that does is it has ramifications to the child, right? Can you talk
Yes.
about that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the more he tried to control what I was doing,
Yeah.
the more I wanted to control back.
Yeah.
And it didn't really motivate me to change. If anything, it pushed me to trudge forward, because the way I interpreted it was, well, I must be doing a good job of losing the weight I want to lose, because he's noticing it, and
You're on his
he's
radar.
I'm on his radar. So what
Right.
I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to stop doing this. So it had the adverse effect, that I think he wanted it to have.
What I find fascinating though is your relationship with him, right? In terms of, he you were on his radar. He noticed, he said something, and then your reaction to it is, well, I'm just going to keep doing it because obviously it's working. That's
Yes.
an interesting place for your mind to be when you're sort of justifying and sort of trying to rationalize what it is that you're doing. It's what we do as human beings. We go to places where we're going to be correct, right? Like, we
Hmm.
reinforce what it is that we're doing because the last thing in the world that we want is to be wrong, right? Now,
That is so
looking
true.
back, having come through that looking glass, right? Having come through that painful experience that I can tell it's difficult for you to talk about, but having come through that, can you talk about what you learned and what you're now taking and teaching children and moms from what you learned?
Absolutely. So my takeaway from that was, as you're raising children, and again, we fast forward to why I wrote these children's books. My profession is also working in the medical device field,
Mhm.
in cardiovascular, and so I've seen the ramifications of an unhealthy diet. So I took my change in perspective about a longevity of nutrition, and creating healthy habits that are sustainable. I took that as a way to raise my children, and to give them the tools to teach them to fish, if you will. Because when you are raising children, you see these children, they will only eat chicken fingers. And I hear parents saying, well, my kids will only eat a chicken finger for dinner. They won't cook what I make. And my response is, children will not let themselves starve to death. Eventually, they're going to eat what you put in front of them, but you can't force it on them. You
Right.
have to kind of take the approach of, educating them. So
Right.
you can't necessarily say, you have to eat these vegetables because I said you have to eat these vegetables. It's no different than motivating adults in business. Like if you have a team of people that you're trying to motivate, you don't say, you have to do this because I said so. You have to give them the why. And that's one thing that I learned, because when I was a child, my dad just kind of forced it on me, whereas my mom gave me the why. She explained, I understand that you want to stay thin. I understand you want to stay healthy for your sports and etc. But you have to figure out a way to do it. And this is why. It wasn't like the forcing. And so that's, these children's books I wrote, it's books for children. So they're animated, cute pictures. The kids are going to love the story. They're fun stories, characters with a sense of humor. But the lesson at the end of the book is you should eat healthy and you should eat vegetables and you should eat fruits. But it doesn't force the message down their throat. It gently gives them the message through the story and the characters. But it also opens up the door for parents to have that conversation with their kids. So every kid has a goal, right? Even if they're 6, they want to score touchdowns on their flag football team, or they want to, T-ball, they want to do well, or their soccer team, they want to score goals. You can tie any goal to healthy eating for children. And so what I learned from that is giving the why, and this obviously translates into when I talk to other women about, why you need to eat healthy, why you need to do this for your kids. It resonates better, I think, in general when you give people the why. So I would say that
Absolutely.
was like a key takeaway for me from that experience, and
You mind
how I've adopted it with my own children.
you mind if we venture into something? I know this was not what we originally talked about,
Totally fine.
but here's the thing. So you mentioned leadership, which is one of the things that we talk about a lot here. We also talk about parenting a lot. And what we found is you can walk into a room as a leader and tell people that you need to do this because I told you to, right? That's not the most effective way, as you mentioned. You can also walk into a room and sit down with them and ask them, we would like as a company to make this goal. We'd like to be here. We're here. How do you picture you contributing to this? Can we count on you being a part of this? And if so, what does that look like? What are you willing to do to help us? Right? What happens is if you use with children, if you use the Socratic method where you're asking them questions, they end up answering their own questions. By the way, I raised my kids by asking them 1,000,007 questions, okay, during their lifetime. They got so tired of questions, they didn't even know who they were, but they knew that dad was asking them questions to help them get to a conclusion that would be their idea, right? So
Mhm.
if you say to your 6-year-old, you can't just eat chicken tenders. By the way, my son, who's 6'5", wears a size 14 men's shoe, handsome as all get out. The kid's a beast. He eats every 15 minutes. Okay. This kid, when he was 6 years old, said he would look at something and go, I don't think I eat that. I don't think I eat that. I don't think, and it's like, okay. So the question I had as a parent was, how in the world is he going to grow on chicken fingers, macaroni and cheese, and hot dogs? How does that happen? The fact of the matter is, he grew just fine. He's 6'5", right? He's 2 inches taller than me, and every year he has to bend down further to give me a kiss. Okay, this is true, right? The fact of the matter is, you're right on where you talk to them and you say, hey, you love Kobe Bryant. You're a big Kobe Bryant fan. How do you think Kobe Bryant eats? Do you think he eats chicken fingers? Are you with me?
Mhm.
What do you think Kobe Bryant eats? You with me?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it's a different conversation. And then you're asking them, so if Kobe Bryant eats this way and you eat this way and you want to be just like him, which way should you choose? Which diet should you choose? Okay. Then
Mhm.
they tell you, well, obviously I need to eat like Kobe Bryant. Well, now they own it, right? This is
Yes.
all about ownership. And this is all about getting your kids, just like you're talking about, getting your kids to a place to where it's their idea. And that's what
Yes.
I love about what you're doing with the children's books. You're helping to educate them on what they need to eat to be a champion. just like you. Okay.
Yes.
You're a champion. I've said this to you before. I've said it to you before we started today. The fact of the matter is, what you've been through has strengthened you. What you've been through has made you better. What you've been through all this turmoil and all these things, right, has helped you to be on the other side of this and look back with hindsight being 2020 to where you can go, hey, don't do this, right? That's what the books are about. The books are about, here's the alternative, here's how you should do this, right? Don't do what I did.
Yeah.
You with me?
And to that point, when I've read to large groups of children, when I've read the books, I do exactly what you said, the Socratic method. I ask them, so what is that book about? What is it teaching you? And then, these kids really opened up. They said, I need to eat more vegetables, and my daddy doesn't eat enough vegetables. I need to tell my daddy to eat more vegetables. And the ideas just start popping out just from hearing the story of these characters that eventually get to that conclusion. So the story resonates with the children very profoundly. The other thing is, you can't make it that rigid for them. That's another thing. And so that was one thing, again, my mom taught me. She said, you have to have wiggle room. You can't eat perfect all the time. And the minute you try to get your kids to eat perfect all the time, they're going to revolt. They're going to get a whole box of cookies when they're not in front of you. And so the other thing that I try to enforce with my children, and also, what other parents need to do, not just for their children, for themselves, the 80-20 rule. Like, if you're eating really, really healthy 80% of the time, you still have that 20% wiggle room for the treat you want, whether it's chicken tenders like your son liked, or mac and cheese, or cinnamon toast crunch. That was my daughter's favorite cereal growing up. And it wasn't, you're going to have cinnamon toast crunch for breakfast. It was, after you have this, and this, then you can have cinnamon toast crunch.
For
So they
dessert.
also, right. So then they learn the moderation of eating healthy, because no matter what situation you're in, there's going to be temptation, and you can't beat yourself up if you don't eat perfectly. So that's another part of it that I thought was really critical to not only teaching my own children, but also, for adults as well. Because I think some people, I know you've lost a lot of weight in your lifetime. And a lot of people, and women particularly, after they have children, if they've gained a lot of weight, they just feel it's insurmountable to where to start. I don't even know where to start. And they give up. Like, they just, well, I'm like this now. This is who I am now. I'm a mom. I can't worry about being healthy. I can't worry about exercising. And you don't have to go from where you're at now to perfect diet, perfect working out. Like, you can do baby steps. You don't have to start with, I'm going to eat perfect. You can say, okay, I'm going to try to eat this many grams of protein. I'm going to limit sugar. Like, you give yourself baby steps. I don't have time to go to the gym right now. I've got two little kids that I'm working full time. I've got two little kids. Okay, do 5 push-ups in the morning. Start with 5 push-ups. Like, you don't need to change your lifestyle that drastically. And again, that's where I think some people fail, is they feel like they're so far away from their goal, they don't even know where to start. And then they beat themselves up if they go from 0 to, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week for 2 hours a day. That's not sustainable right off the bat. You can work your way up to that. And that's another thing, that I'm going to have in my mom's book, is more advice on how do you get started? Like, what are some baby steps you can do to at least get you going in the right direction?
Do you think it's important that people that are trying to make a lifestyle change give themselves permission to do it? Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go.
Absolutely. And I also think they need to give themselves permission to do it at their pace, because I think that's where people fail, is they, kind of like what I tried to do as a teenager. As I was a preteen. I started off in junior high. I went from 0 to, all right, I'm going to go, because I'm a big eater. I have a big appetite. Again, I'm Greek and Italian, so I eat a lot. and even today I eat a lot, but I know what to eat so that I can stay in shape.
Mhm.
But I went from eating, 2 breakfasts at Denny's. We used to go to Denny's every morning, every weekend for breakfast. I'd eat my breakfast and my dad's and whatever my mom didn't eat and whatever my little sister didn't eat. So I was a big eater. So I went from that to nothing. And that wasn't sustainable and that wasn't healthy. And I think that's what adults try to do when they're at that pivot point of either I need to get healthy or I need to figure out a way to teach my kids how to eat healthy. They make it too rigid, and that's where people fail because they can't go make that big of a change. You have to slowly go toward that change, and then you have these small goals that you achieve. Let's say you start off with 5 push-ups on your bathtub. It's easier to do it off your bathtub than on the floor, right? Start with 5, work up to 10, work up to 15, work up to 20. Okay, let's move it to the floor now. How many can you do from the floor? Like, you can do baby steps every day and it takes less than 3 minutes. So, there's a lot you can do just to start the process.
Do you feel like people have this loop in their head that they have to take care of everybody else, and because of that they feel guilty about taking care of themselves?
That's a really insightful question. And I do think a lot of moms feel that way. Um, because again, the children become the priority and dads too. I'm not saying that dads don't feel that way, but in a lot of homes, you feel that way too as a dad.
I had that
Um,
loop going on in my head,
that loop, that
and I
guilt,
got to be over 400 pounds.
and it was all about the kids, right?
Well, it was all about everybody else. So the
Yes,
loop in my head was, I can't go work out. I can't go do this. I can't go do that because I've got all these people I'm taking care of. Right?
exactly.
I had a couple hundred people in my company. I had a lot going on, right? And I took everything that was going on, all the stresses and all the strains and all that, and I ate them. I literally ate them. And I
Yeah,
had this sort of loop in my head going, well, if you take time to go take care of yourself, you're taking time away from all these people. It was all a lie. It was all a huge lie. But it was one of those things that I want people to recognize. I figured it out. I lost 104 pounds, and then I had a major blow up with my health. Went to the doctor, and the doctor goes, "I don't care that you lost 104 pounds. You need to lose another. You need to lose more, and you need to do it now." She'd give me a number. I lost 51 pounds in the next 90 days. Okay, I wouldn't recommend it, but I did it. And part of the reason I did it was I was on 6 different drugs every day when I was at that weight. So I lost that weight. When I lost that weight, all my numbers cured up, A1C, everything else, and they took
hmm,
me off of all of those 6 drugs, which was exactly what my motivation was, right? So altogether, I've lost 162 pounds, but it came from all these realizations and all these. And what I realized is, if I'm not here, I can't take care of the people that I love. There's a reason
exactly.
why they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first and then help your child, or then help the person you're with, right? Or help somebody
Yeah,
else. You have to be able to breathe first. You have to be able to, right?
yeah.
So that was the thing that sort of went, okay, I'm 51 years old. I'm not done. Because they literally looked at me and they said, "You continue down this road, you're done.
You'll be done. Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll
you're
be
you're
done.
you're not gonna you're not gonna see your grandbabies. You're not gonna walk your daughter down the aisle. You're not gonna be at right." They hadn't
Hmm.
graduated yet. I'm been to their graduation. You know what I mean? So it's like, wow, man, this is right. My grandfather, who I'm exactly like, lived to be 97.
Wow, that's
Okay,
incredible.
51 isn't gonna get it done, right?
No,
51 is not gonna get it
that's a
done.
lot of years.
Right,
Yeah, a
it's
lot
not
of
gonna
years
get
to
it done.
go.
So can you take a second and talk about what your goal is for the children's books, and then also what your goal is for the mom book?
Absolutely. And let's talk about the goal for the children's books first.
Yeah.
I do think everything you said is exactly right. I think as parents or managers of people we work with, your team, your company, we tend to put ourselves last,
Mhm.
especially when we have a lot of people to take care of. And I would say parents do this with young children as well. I hear moms and dads say, I don't have time to work out now that I have kids and they're my focus and I'm driving them everywhere. And in that process not taking care of themselves. They're not as healthy as they need to be for their children, and they're also not setting the example that their children needs to see. And that was my aha moment as well. Like raising children, you learn quickly that they copy everything you do, good or bad. You see all your bad habits through your children, things you say too often, whatever expressions you use, you hear through your children all the time. They're going to copy everything you do. Like, it's one thing of what you tell them to do, but what speaks louder is what you actually do. And that's where I do think it's really critical that parents are not only teaching their kids how to eat healthy at a young age, because again, you look at, we've got a very high obese population, high rate of diabetes, high rate of childhood diabetes that's purely based on not eating the right foods. And it's, there's this convenience of fast food. It's faster, it's easier, it's cheaper. It's not cheaper. Like, if you know how to shop for food, and you can go, you don't have to shop at expensive supermarkets if you're getting the basics, like, the vegetables, the meat, the chicken. So what I really want these books to do is give parents and also grandparents the platform to start having the conversation with their kids about the why of eating healthy through these storybooks. One of the books is for much younger children, like probably age, probably 2 to 5. They'll understand exactly how it goes. The concept is very simple. It's a seagull that wants to fly high, tries to fly high eating cookies off the, whatever. But the net of it is, the seagull was able to fly higher because they learned to eat fruits and vegetables. And then the next story, probably age 5 to like 10, will understand it. But with each of these books, whatever age the kids are at, they start off on the journey of learning the why. And it's an easy, non-aggressive way for the parents to start having that conversation, because it's like you said earlier, the Socratic method. Rather than saying, you need to do this. And again, I noticed this when I read to large groups of children at schools, the kids get it. They're smart. And they, through the lessons in the books, they know, oh, I need to eat healthy. And that gives the parents a platform to say, yes, let's figure out how we can do this together. And then it becomes a family thing, and it's led by the kids. And it's, to me, I feel like it'll inspire the parents to do better for themselves. So that's my goal with the children's books.
Well, it also involves the kids, because you've had kids come up to you, like you mentioned earlier, and they said, hey, my dad doesn't eat enough vegetables.
Yes.
My dad doesn't eat enough fruit. I need to have a conversation with my dad, right? Well, imagine being a parent, and this is something you're supposed to do. This is something you need to be talking to your kids about. This is something you need to be teaching them. And then all of a sudden they come home and go, hey, I just listened to a book being read, and you need to eat more vegetables, Dad. You need to eat more fruit. All of a sudden the door's open, right? And they're open to that conversation, because they're coming there because they love their dad and they want their dad to be healthy, just like the seagull, right?
Yes.
Okay. What you're doing here is you're helping them to open the door.
Yes.
And that's crucial, absolutely crucial, because it's a subject that's not something that people are necessarily always comfortable talking about, especially like eating disorders and that kind of thing, right? It's not comfortable. And so, and making a change is not comfortable. People don't like change. They just don't.
They don't.
Okay?
That's so true.
And the fact of the matter is, when we introduce change into their life, it sort of shocks the system. Well, what you're doing is you're literally opening the door to that change. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Instead of them having to go and spend 7 hours in the emergency room like I did,
Yeah.
right? Or have the health scare that I just recently had where I was in the ICU and all that. You know all about that.
Yes.
That's obviously a wake-up call and a shock to the system, but we don't have to be there.
They can
That's
mitigate
not where
that.
we have to be. And the obesity thing, I would agree with you, is a diet thing, but it's also a movement thing.
Yes.
Right? We don't move the way we used to. We don't, like, I was at the gym the other day. I'm not joking. I was at the gym the other day, and I parked my truck. Well, I parked my truck as far away from the gym as I possibly can be, because I don't want anybody parking next to me, right? It blows my mind, the people that will pull up, men and women, that will pull up, and they're going to do 9 miles on a treadmill, but they have to be right next to the door, right? They have to
Yes.
squeeze in. They'll wait with their turn signal on so that they can get a. It boggles my mind. Okay, it's right.
So
And
true.
so, like, I
Yes.
take stairs instead of elevators, and it drives people nuts. Like right. But what happens is they wait for an elevator, then they take the elevator up there, and I'm standing there waiting for them
You beat them.
because I didn't have to wait,
Yeah.
right? I didn't
Yep.
have to, okay? And it's like, those are the things that you can do every day, right? That you can incorporate in movement. You can incorporate, even if it's parking further away from the store you're going to or whatever, and then you walk further to go, So that's the kind of stuff that when people are committed and people understand and the doors open, right? It it's easier to walk through. It's easier, and that's what I just absolutely dearly love about what you're doing. So let's talk about the mom book for a second.
Sure.
I know it's not out yet. I know it's coming. But
It's
can you
coming.
talk about what you're looking to accomplish there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mom book has a number of topics. It really starts off with a lot of the things we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Just how, as a mom, you're juggling a lot of things. Moms, we try to be perfect. We try to do everything right. If we work and we're a mom, we have guilt that we're working and we're not with our kids all the time. If we don't work, we have guilt because we're not bringing money to the household. There's always guilt, no
Mhm.
matter what, because we're trying to be so perfect. On top of that, it's exactly what you said, feeling like you need to run the household, you need to prioritize everybody but yourself. And that's such a common thing. And so, really, a lot of it is about women realizing, as moms, or even not as moms, you need to prioritize yourself no matter what. And that doesn't make you less of a mom. That actually will make you a better mom. And it's more sustainable because eventually your kids are going to, they become more independent the older they get. And I see a lot of moms that focused everything on just the kids, didn't focus on themselves. The kids go to college and they're lost.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it's just self-care for moms and also focusing on what are some little things you can do to get there. I also have information not only about your own healthy eating, also easy exercise habits. So, we talked about, you take stairs. That's one of the recommendations in the book. So it's going to be an easy handbook. It's not going to be like a, 500-page book. It's going to be like hacks, like easy hacks. Like, how do I get my kids to eat healthy? What are some ways I can do this? What are some ways that I can start becoming more healthy? I have weight to lose. I've got to start working out. I've got to get back to the gym eventually. I don't have time to get back to the gym right now. What can I do to start? So it's early hacks. I even have a little bit in there about dating as a mom because there's, high divorce right now too. So there's a lot of single moms that are also trying to navigate that while they're navigating being a mom and working. And so really it's more of a handbook is what it's
Mhm.
going to be. And there's also going to be, work stuff in there, career things, things about career. Again, really life hacks for moms to really get on the path that they want to be on, of not only being the best moms they can be, but also giving themselves grace that you're never going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. And perfection is not sustainable. We have to, make sure that we're chasing what's realistic for each of us, regardless of where we're at in our lives. For some women, running a marathon will be sustainable for them. That would not be sustainable for me. Like let's just say that right now, I will not be running marathons, but there are women that will want to run marathons, right? So you've got this spectrum of what people can and can't do, and just giving yourself grace for starting wherever you're comfortable starting, and forgiving yourself for feeling the way you feel of like, oh gosh, I can't do everything right. I'm trying to keep all these balls in the air and they're falling. A lot of it's about that as well, is just getting us in the right mindset as parents. Like, you're raising a human being, or you're raising multiple human beings. It's not easy. And kids don't come with a handbook, and
Mhm.
that's okay. You're going to make mistakes. And that's where you're going to learn your biggest lessons, is through these mistakes.
Yeah,
That's
it's
another
not
thing I
it's
think.
not the making of the mistakes, it's how you deal with it,
It's
right?
the lesson.
And
Yeah, it
it's and
starts
it's
off as,
yeah.
yeah, like the book starts off as what I wish I knew 20 years ago, because now my kids are raised, they're both in college. But it was a journey along the way, and I got divorced, so I had to deal with being a single mom too. So there was that dynamic. So again, there's a lot of like things I wish I knew 20 years ago in there.
Yeah. And it's hindsight's 2020, like we talked about, right? And
Always.
that's the beautiful thing of what you're doing with these books is you're literally helping people to enrich their lives. I think it's incredibly important that people understand that if you're moving, right? If you're exercising, if you're doing things, even if it's just a little bit, even if all you're doing is walking around the block a couple of times or one time or whatever, you're getting outside, you're getting fresh air, you're getting air in your lungs, and you're also generating endorphins.
Yeah,
Endorphins will make you happier, right? So
totally.
when you're dealing with a child that's being difficult, or you're dealing with a situation that seems insurmountable, or you're dealing with the stresses and the strains, it makes it easier for you to deal with those things if you are, in fact, somebody who has been moving, right? You got out,
Yeah.
you got your blood moving, you, right? Got some air in your lungs, that kind of thing, got some sun on your face, that type of deal. You know, I'm not a big sunscreen person, obviously. So probably pay for that one of these days. But Candice Imwalle, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm so proud of you and these books that you're writing and what you're doing to help change and enrich people's lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It was a pleasure.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.